Good morning out there, internet land. This is Morgan Denny for PT on Ice Daily Show. Happy Tuesday. We here out in Portland are getting ready to head to Haiti in a couple days, so I am super stoked to talk to you guys for just a brief moment. Today I want to talk about something that's actually come up for me personally in the clinic a little bit and also having students. So just to give a background, I have had my fair share of orthopedic injuries, and I'm sure many of you have too, right? It's not what's led me to PT, but it certainly has helped me to kind of analyze and understand what people are going through. I have often joked that if I wasn't a PT, I would have heavily invested in the industry thus far by not only paying some PTs to help with all of my orthopedic issues and injuries, but also because I probably would have found that the profession was beneficial enough that I thought it was going to just go off the charts. A worthy investment. And I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same. As humans who grow up and are active, we're not perfect. We all have injuries. We can relate to our patients in a lot of ways. We've been down one road or another, whether it was an ankle sprain early on or a low back injury or you hurt yourself at work. That happens to PTs all the time too. I've had shoulder injuries, I've had neck stuff from bike crashes, I have hurt my hips and my knees and my ankles, and I've had elbow stuff. Kind of the more active you are and as time goes on, you rack up some of these injuries, some of these experiences, I like to call them for patients sometimes, and I think in a lot of ways, this can make me a better PT. I can sympathize with the pain that my patients are having on a lot of different levels. I'm able to say I understand when that thing woke you up at night and your arm was numb or whatever, because I've been there, and I think that we understand when a patient is going through it can be really, really helpful, but also can be really dangerous. If a patient is saying to me, yeah, I can't do A, B, and C because of my pain, or I'm unable to go out and do my sport or perform, or I can't carry my kids. Those are really viable things. Or more dramatically, if their injury is affecting their work, their job, their family, their relationship. On a side note, if you guys ever have a new patient come in post-op or post-fracture, something like that, if they're in a relationship, I think one of the best pieces of advice we can give as PTs is to right away, that day, go home, leave PT, and bring their loved one flowers, chocolate, something, because their injury is going to be hard on their relationship, and it's really good to start that rehab process off right with some thankfulness before the resentment or bitterness perhaps sets in of one person doing more than the other. Anyway, I digress. So I think it's good to have had some injuries, right? Ways in which you can relate to your patients. But I do think it holds a little bit of danger as well, right? Every injury is different. And the more research that comes out, the more we know that we are uncertain that we can ever truly diagnose what tissue is causing a patient's pain in all exactitude. So while I've had shoulder pain and I know what I think helped me, as a PT, I have to be really careful not to extrapolate that to my patient. And I'm sure that there are a few people out there well, I've had this before and it's totally great for me to tell my patient. And I'm not fighting that, but think about it from a third person perspective, right? How many times has a patient come in and told you about their back pain, their knee pain, whatever, and then told you some crazy thing they tried because their cousin who had the same thing 3 years ago did that and it totally worked or helped, right? We shake our heads, we roll our eyes, we're like, oh, silly, there's lots of forms of back pain. And obviously there's a million things that are different and every patient is different, and, Dr. Google or your doctor cousin can't tell you what to do over the internet or the phone. But at times that's exactly what we do if we're taking our previous symptoms and extrapolating them onto our patient's pain. We are taking our experience, be it valuable, but we are often taking that experience and making that into our diagnostics, right? Just like Aunt Susan did, or Cousin Joe, or whatever. We do some of the same things, only we have this inherent belief that because we are PTs and we have further, I guess, evaluated our pain, we must understand theirs. So we have to really watch out for that, right? So, and again, I'm not saying that it's not beneficial or wrong, right? Like, for example, Sarah was on PT on Ice Daily show last week talking about how she had had hip impingement, and getting through that led her to becoming like the hip impingement star of the Pacific Northwest. And that is awesome, right? Being able to kind of have that common element with your patients, to sympathize with them, to allow them to see that you've gotten better, hopefully, and that there is like this path that, even very resilient humans get hurt. Those are all really important things. Building that therapeutic alliance, like all these factors are key, but sometimes they can be helpful and sometimes they can be harmful in terms of being able to help your patient with your patient's actual problem, right? Like sometimes there are things you do learn in an injury that are invaluable, that as a PT you would never know. There are a lot of crazy, I'm going to say crazy with quotation marks here, crazy things that people try, or that I've tried, I'll say, that don't seem to have any validity or reason to work when you're injured, because you get desperate and you're in pain. And sometimes those things really work. And whether it's the expectation that it's going to work because it's something new and different, or whether it's because they actually have value, is really hard to know. But sometimes having those kind of experiences during your injury can really help your patient to understand that like that little thing could be beneficial too. But I think we have to realize, or like dial back our egos a little and realize that, if someone walks in with elbow pain, and we're like, oh, all you need are eccentrics, strength training and eccentrics, exactly what your elbow injury needs, because that's what mine needed. Like, that's kind of bullshit. Sorry, saying it. But the thing is, like, you could have a patient that has weak rotator cuff muscles and therefore they're having neural drag and elbow symptoms. You could have a patient who was a weekend warrior carpenter and just went out and killed it with a hammer and also destroyed their tendon. You could have someone who's got referred stuff coming from C5, C6, and your elbow pain might have been from something completely different. So if the stretches or the exercises or the thing that helped your elbow pain or whatever were stretching into gaining shoulder flexion and making sure your ulnar nerve was moving more correctly, that's great for you. But we need to make sure that we're not extrapolating that to our patients, because we could be setting them up for either a longer recovery road or setting them up to just completely fail. And obviously that's not what we want as PTs, right? So understanding that every patient's process is different and just being really careful to check ourselves and make sure we're not telling them things to do that were just helpful for us instead of the things that we actually are being, specific and objective in finding. And there's so many factors that cause pain and dysfunction, right? Like, if you really want to learn more about some of the pain patterns and how those form, obviously you can take Justin's persistent pain course, which I think the next cohort starts in February. So if you're interested, get on that stat, right? But coming back to it, right? Like it's hard to know why someone develops an injury sometimes. There are lots and lots of factors. And so, setting up those expectations about what your body did is not appropriate for a patient. It is very possible that an injury that took my body 2 months to get over is going to take someone else a year. And if I give them that incorrect expectation right off the bat, because I'm not understanding all the other factors around their pain issue, like that can be really harmful for a patient too. It can make them feel like, their body's not working well or they're doing something wrong. And honestly, from the flip side, what if an injury that took me a year actually is only going to take the patient a couple months? If I give them the expectation that it could take up to a year, they might then set their tissue up for that expectation too, and we could prolong their healing just because they believe that this is going to take a really long time, right? So some of these things are really hard to say, and it can get a little bit muddy in the waters. Oh, those muddy, muddy waters. Anyway, and I think there's something really different about the credit that we give like didactic book learning versus the experience we have as humans. And I'm not saying that's a PT thing. I think that's a human thing. Like, if I have an experience, I am going to go back to that, give that more credence than something I read in the book, you know? And I think that we just need to be careful that we're not allowing that to come through with our patients time and time again, because it's really, really easy and sometimes helpful, like we've said, to have had that experience, but we need to make sure that we're still performing those very, very specific, well, not always specific, we're forming those skilled evaluations, that's the word I was looking for, you know, and not just going back to the symptoms that we've had and relying on that feeling of whatever our back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, fill in the blank injury has felt like, you know, and not necessarily giving that advice to our patients just because it worked for us. It's not necessarily going to work for them. So be sure we're understanding our patient's overall symptom pain pattern and making sure that we can connect with our patients via those past experiences, but not allow them to be the one thing that's guiding our treatment of the patient or the advice we're giving them. So remember, you are not your patient, and your patient is not you. So check yourself before you wreck yourself. Be a good PT. Have a great day, everybody. The song of the day today is Movement by Hozier. And also, you guys, as I mentioned, we are headed to Haiti on Friday. So if you want to follow what we're doing with Stand the Haiti Project, feel free to follow us on Facebook or Instagram for updates. And there will be some, because this is an exciting trip. We are actually having the very first class of Haitian PT and OT students ever doing their clinicals at our clinic. So super stoked. Look out for that stuff. Have a good day, you guys, and have fun.